cars.
Yeah.
Is he this gangster that behind the scenes that is that him? Or is that people
Shout
running?
out to Wendy Williams.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. You know, I mean, he's very successful.
The curtain lifts on a world most of us will never see. But Jaguar Wright swears she's been close enough to smell the sparkling beverage and hear the whispers. She says Diddy's infamous freak-off parties weren't just hedonistic spectacles, they were carefully staged carnivals of excess where reputations were built, destroyed, and, according to her, even lives were put at risk. Imagine the setting. Private jets landing in the Hamptons, LA, or Miami with some of the biggest names in music, stepping off in tailored suits and sparkling gowns only to be funneled into sprawling mansions where the real show began behind closed doors. The living rooms look like film sets, the sparkling beverage towers stretch taller than the guests, and in hidden corners of those estates, Wright insists cameras were quietly rolling. To the public, it was glamour. To the insiders, she says, it was a trap, and a dangerous one at that.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
She takes it further, alleging that these parties became silent hubs for transmitting life-changing infections, with stars unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, being caught in the crossfire. Think about it. One moment they're toasting to million-dollar deals, the next they're locked into a secret that could ruin them forever. Wright claims the danger wasn't just physical, but psychological, that the parties were designed as a kind of blackmail theater. The thrill, the risk, the silence that followed, it all blended into a culture of fear. If she's right, some of the biggest names we cheer for on stage may have been carrying a burden far heavier than the gold chains around their necks.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
And then comes her most jaw-dropping claim, that Usher, once a bright young star under Diddy's watch, allegedly sacrificed Justin Bieber by handing him into the same world of temptation and manipulation. The word sacrifice cuts sharp here. It's not about ritual flames, but about innocence lost, opportunity traded for survival. Usher, who himself had been mentored under these very systems, is accused of continuing the cycle, guiding Bieber into the orbit of a mogul who, by Wright's telling, thrived on control and corruption. We remember Bieber as the fresh-faced teenager, singing about first loves, but Wright paints him instead as a pawn in a game much older than his career. It's a chilling suggestion that mentorship in the music world isn't just about records and concerts, but about who gets offered up to keep the empire stable. Behind all of it, she insists, was the infamous blackmail vault. If the phrase makes you shiver, that's the point. Wright suggests that Diddy didn't just build his empire on chart-topping tracks and fragrance lines, he built it on secrets, footage, files, whispered confessions caught at the height of intoxication that could be weaponized whenever someone dared to step out of line. We've heard from Cassie Ventura during his ongoing trial that tapes existed, recordings of her pulled into these so-called freak-offs, and she testified that the fear of those videos being released kept her in line. Wright expands that nightmare, hinting that it wasn't just Cassie but a whole roster of stars who knew they'd been captured in compromising positions, strings he could cut with one leaked clip.
I'm sorry, I'm just like really, I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21 years later.
The tragedy, Wright says, is that it wasn't only careers that got buried. She points to Craig Mack as one of the first casualties of crossing Diddy, a talent who seemingly disappeared from the industry at his peak. The public saw a man fade away into obscurity, but Wright suggests his fall was engineered, the cost of resisting a system built to silence. That same silence has fueled conspiracy theories about other stars, names like Aaliyah, Left Eye, even Michael Jackson, whose sudden ends have been folded into whispers about Diddy and his allies. It sounds unthinkable, but the internet has latched on, especially after TikTok users drew eerie connections. 3 major stars, all gone on the 25th of different months, all somehow tied to circles where Diddy, Jay-Z, and Beyonce loomed large. Coincidence? Or, as Wright and others hint, the shadow of something darker at play?
Just different things that's not really beef though. That's just competitive energy,
competitiveness.
You know?
All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him
Okay,
like that.
damn.
It's impossible to ignore how Jay-Z's name keeps sliding into this conversation. Once celebrated for flipping his teenage past of corner hustling into a billion-dollar empire, Jay-Z now finds his old ties to Diddy under relentless scrutiny. 50 Cent, never one to pull punches, mocked him openly online, asking if he was still friends to the end with a man drowning in legal battles. The jabs weren't subtle. They were punctuated with old photos, handshakes, and nights where Jay-Z and Diddy looked inseparable. Wright seizes on that silence too, noting how Jay-Z has remained curiously quiet as Diddy's trial unfolds, a quiet that fuels speculation more than it soothes it. If Jay-Z could pivot from selling crack in Brooklyn to selling fine cigars of green leaf in luxury packaging, why hasn't he pivoted away from his old friend with the kind of clarity fans expect?
And I'm not saying allegedly.
Oh.
I'm saying, Sean Carter, you're a piece of shit. Taking Pimp C wasn't bad enough. You just want to go down there and you want to just remove all of the balls from every real gangster in Houston.
And Beyonce isn't spared in these whispers either. On TikTok, videos rake in millions of views suggesting she and Jay-Z were not only loyal allies, but possible co-conspirators in darker moments of music history. The evidence? Strangely persistent public displays of deference at award shows. Stars from Adele to Lizzo breaking their own moments to heap praise on Queen Bee. To some, it's admiration. To others, it looks like allegiance, as if thanking the Carters publicly is the cost of staying safe behind the scenes. When J. Cole's song She Knows suddenly resurfaced, with fans parsing the title into Sean and Knowles or even Sean and Knowles, the coincidence is stacked too neatly for the conspiracy hungry. Wright calls Jay-Z and Beyonce a nasty little couple, and insists she knows people willing to testify against them. And once she compared their behavior to what allegedly happened with Aaliyah, the speculation only deepened. And what makes it all more sinister is how these rumors dovetail with the trial's courtroom details. Cassie described freak-offs that went on for days, filled with substances and strangers, orchestrated like grotesque theater. She said she was coerced, blackmailed with footage, made to feel like property rather than a partner. Federal prosecutors themselves allege that Diddy turned his record label and his vast empire into a criminal enterprise, one where resources and staff were weaponized to sustain his private desires. That paints Wright's words in sharper relief. If Cassie's testimony matches pieces of what Jaguar Wright says, maybe these aren't just conspiracy theories. Maybe they're fragments of a puzzle no one in the industry dares finish.
There are people who did short sales on their stocks right after that, made a lot of money, including Sean Carter. Now I'm going to ask you, why would non-disclosure agreements need to be signed for an accident?
Even Damon Dash, Aaliyah's former partner and once a close ally of Jay-Z, has weighed in. He admits he was at one of those Hampton parties 2 decades ago, but claims he left quickly, implying he didn't want to stick around for what might follow. He's spoken of Aaliyah herself as a sacrificial lamb, used and discarded in a cycle of exploitation that others covered up. It's a haunting parallel to Wright's own framing of Bieber, Usher, and Diddy. Different generations, same machinery grinding forward. We start to see the outlines of a system that thrives not just on talent, but on the leverage that comes from compromising that talent.
Jay-Z got his ass whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got his ass. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your ass whooped.
Meanwhile, Jay-Z is still battling court filings tied to an old accusation from a woman who once claimed both he and Diddy assaulted her after the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards. That lawsuit collapsed under contradictory recordings, yet the shadows remain, especially now when every connection to Diddy feels radioactive. His lawyers fight back, framing the suit as a blackmail attempt, but the story itself keeps resurfacing online, fueling more speculation than closure. Jay-Z might insist he's being targeted unfairly, but when Wright calls him out for starting little fires everywhere and sneaking away without accountability, the timing couldn't feel more pointed.
It was like, wow, for Diddy? What? You know, that was a person that I looked up to. He was a mogul, and I listened to all the artists that he made superstars. And so to have a chance to be able to be signed to him, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally did it.
So here we are, staring into a web that stretches across decades, from the Marcy projects to the Hamptons, from secret parties to public trials. Wright's revelations don't just pull back the curtain on Diddy, they tug at the threads connecting Usher, Bieber, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and countless others whose names have hovered in the same glittering orbit. The empire wasn't only built on beats and branding, she claims, but on the calculated ruin of anyone who dared to resist. And once you start thinking about who might be locked away in that so-called vault of secrets, it becomes almost impossible not to wonder who else has been forced to stay silent.
Continue to engage in all these freak-offs with him, and he sounds really pissed off.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know, you think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening. You'll just have silence.
And that brings us right back to the silence of Jay-Z. For a man who has built an empire on speaking truth, turning hustler stories into billion-dollar enterprises, his refusal to address Diddy's ongoing scandal feels less like caution and more like calculation. This is Jay-Z, the same man who once told Vanity Fair that selling crack as a teenager taught him everything about budgets, survival, and long-term strategy. If he was willing to be that open about his past, why not now? Why not when his old friend is on trial for racketeering, for orchestrating freak-off marathons, for allegedly keeping an entire blackmail library of the industry's biggest names? It's hard not to wonder, is his silence a shield, or is it a warning sign that he knows too much, maybe even too personally?
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th, definitely making the rounds, because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy, where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to with him. Let's take a listen.
The timeline makes the question sting sharper. For decades, we've seen footage of Jay-Z and Diddy together, on yachts, at awards, popping bottles on stage. Their careers rose in tandem, their reputations fortified by proximity. 50 Cent threw gasoline on this fire when he taunted Jay-Z directly, mocking him for his loyalty and pointing to those very photos as evidence of a deeper bond. If Jay-Z really wanted to cut ties, he could have done so years ago, but instead, the silence grows louder, and every unanswered question echoes like a beat dropped in an empty studio.
We made love.
Who you made love with?
Diddy, Bow Wow, Busta Rhymes.
And it's not just about money or music. Whispers have long swirled about what really happened at Diddy's most private gatherings, moments that went beyond freak-offs into what some insiders describe as ritualistic performances. Jaguar Wright's words sent chills because they tapped into these rumors, the idea that certain nights weren't just about indulgence, but about reenactments of tragedy. Some allege that Aaliyah's name would be invoked at parties, that masks were passed around and chants echoed while guests watched eerie dramatizations of her final flight. Others say Left Eye's crash or Michael Jackson's final collapse were mimicked as part of twisted ceremonies, tributes disguised as something far darker.
Jay-Z new video with Nas and DJ Khaled is a scene with checkerboards. These are all occult Satanists.
It sounds unbelievable until you notice the pattern. 3 icons gone on the 25th of different months, all tethered to the same inner circle by circumstance, collaboration, or personal ties. TikTok users poured fuel on the theory, looping J. Cole's track She Knows, pointing at the name as a cipher, Sean and Knowles, linking Beyonce and Jay-Z directly back to Diddy in one sinister thread. Millions watched, millions debated, and suddenly the tribute theory didn't sound like a stretch, but like another piece of a puzzle hiding in plain sight. What many overlook is that these freak-offs weren't just chaotic nights of excess. They operated like a business model. Every detail was orchestrated with precision, from the fleets of private jets flying in select guests to the suites booked in 5-star hotels across LA, Miami, and Paris. Even the people brought in to entertain weren't random. They were handpicked, compensated, and rotated in and out like assets. Behind the velvet ropes, it looked glamorous, but when stripped of the glitter, it resembled a shadow economy, an operation where power was traded through bodies, secrets, and silent transactions.
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, Astroglide.
The so-called freak-off economy became its own underground marketplace. Every bottle poured, every hotel suite reserved, every private flight chartered ran through channels controlled by Diddy's empire. By some accounts, the parties were so regular and so extravagant that they created an entire pipeline of service providers, pilots, event staff, stylists, security guards, whose livelihoods became tethered to this circuit. If the lights went out on these gatherings, so would the paychecks of dozens, maybe hundreds of people who relied on them. That dependence gave Diddy more than just financial gain. It gave him loyalty, silence, and cover. What makes this even more sinister is the suggestion that profits flowed at every level. The money funneled through luxury brands sponsoring the appearances, through record labels keeping their stars tied to the machine, and through the individuals who supplied substances and entertainment. It wasn't indulgence for indulgence's sake. It was structured, organized, and monetized, an ecosystem that thrived on blurring the line between celebration and exploitation. When prosecutors describe racketeering, this is the type of infrastructure that fits uncomfortably well with the definition. Viewed in this light, the freak-offs weren't only a private indulgence, they were a financial weapon. With tapes allegedly rolling and debts mounting from the lifestyle, attendees were left vulnerable. A star who owed Diddy not just favors but also financial ties could be kept in line far more easily than one who merely owed him a friendship. By binding people with both secrets and money, he created an empire where stepping away could mean financial ruin, career implosion, or exposure to scandals carefully documented for leverage.
Is he this gangster that behind the scenes is that him? Or is that people
Shout
running?
out to Wendy Williams.
And that is the part of the story that unsettles us the most. Because if this freak-off economy really did exist, it means the scandal isn't limited to what happened behind closed doors. It seeps into the very structure of the entertainment industry. The music, the tours, the sponsorship deals, even the flashy award show appearances could have been financed, in part, by a system designed to exploit. If true, then Diddy's power didn't just come from producing hits. It came from engineering a network where everyone had something to lose, and he was the only one guaranteed to win. Emitash himself once suggested Aaliyah was a sacrificial lamb taken too soon in a way that protected others while silencing her own story. Coming from someone who loved her, who was by her side at the time, that language lands heavy. And when we align it with Wright's descriptions of strange rituals, of stars being used and discarded, we can't help but wonder if the industry's brightest lights are only safe until they stop playing along.
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if you listen. I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
The ripple effects of these stories go far beyond rumor. Cassie Ventura's testimony in court made it clear that blackmail tapes existed, that fear of exposure was the chain that kept her bound. Prosecutors themselves allege that Diddy ran his empire like a criminal enterprise, relying on intimidation, coercion, and secrecy. If that's true, then Wright's talk of vaults, sacrifices, and rituals doesn't sit in the realm of fantasy. It sits uncomfortably close to reality. We've already seen careers vanish, reputations implode, and lawsuits pile up. What if the next collapse isn't random at all, but carefully orchestrated just like everything else? It makes Jay-Z's silence more haunting than ever. Is he quiet because he's innocent and wants no part of the mess? Or is he quiet because speaking risks pulling him into the same undertow that swallowed Craig Mack, Cassie, and so many others? The public can forgive a hustler's past, but can it forgive complicity in something bigger? If Beyoncé and Jay-Z are truly as entangled as Wright suggests, with victims allegedly ready to testify, then silence might not be protection anymore. It might be the rope that drags them in. And here's where we're left holding our breath. If Aaliyah's fate was a warning, if Left Eye's crash and Michael Jackson's Last Night were more than coincidences, then how many other names are already written into this system, waiting to be unveiled? How many of the stars we idolize are secretly locked in the same blackmail web, smiling on stage while praying their secrets stay buried? So what do we believe? Are these just conspiracy-fueled coincidences, or is Jaguar Wright cracking open a vault the industry never wanted exposed? Let us know what you think in the comments, because this story is only getting darker. Until next time, stay sharp, stay questioning, and remember, in the world of fame, nothing is ever as it seems.